Hey guys, welcome back. So let's talk about how this realm is very similar to a secret society initiation. So I've really been giving this a lot of thought and how I've gotten these feelings that just like the secret societies put initiates through their program, through their society, right, through their levels, it seems like we are doing the same thing. Now, in a sense, we may have already started at higher points, except we fell into the pyramid, to the bottom levels, and we were made to forget everything, all this information that we had. Now, I'm not saying that this is an organic structure. Okay, so beware. I'm still claiming that it is a Ponzi scheme, right? We are in the prism of light, the prism of light. So in that sense, with all the numbers I've been seeing, a lot of people report seeing number 33. Okay, I then, I guess, kind of progressed to the number 13. If you study the Masonic structure to their brotherhood, they have the 33 levels, but that's the outer ring. The inner ring is the 13 families, the 13 brotherhood families. And then we have at the center those that they actually receive counsel from. So some actually even say that these beings potentially receive counsel from this AI cube that calculates everything and sets everything into motion based on quantum computing, right? We've seen that portrayed in Westworld. I forgot the exact name. But in like season 4, the guy has this huge spherical AI that he takes orders from. And it's always on his watch when there's chaos happening, when it's not following the plan. When it is, the circle completes itself. Very similar to the serpent around this realm, right? But at the center, really, which I think are still interrelated, they actually more than likely are forms of AI, is this other brotherhood known as the Great White Brotherhood. Okay, so if you guys may have heard of these beings, they're like the Sun Masters basically, and they, because I've had an experience with them as well, claim to be the ones actually guiding humanity. If you've heard of beings like Saint Germain or Maitreya, they claim to be incarnated on this realm to further humanity's evolution, right? That's the common New Age belief. And New Age is one of the higher steps, I think, in this initiation of this Masonic realm, or whatever astral AI realm that we're in. Because again, remember, everything found in the higher levels of the Matrix is simply reflected here. Okay, it's a fractal of it. So you can find everything that you want to explore up there here already present through things like the corporate structure, right? We have the CEO, the chief executive, right? Similar to the chief executive of this Ponzi scheme, right? The AI architect, more than likely, right? Now this Great Brotherhood, my experience with them, I essentially contacted them a while back, about a year or two, through a channeler, right? She was channeling these ascended masters beings / Great White Brotherhood, and I asked them about, well, what about these secret societies that are actually in control of this place, that seem to be running this place from the shadows. They're like, oh, yeah, they're very sweet and loving to me. Just talk to me in a very, ego-stroking voice. Oh, don't worry about them. They're just puppets. We can replace them whenever we want. I'm paraphrasing, but that was largely exactly how they said it. It wasn't the exact words, but it was very, very close from what I remember. Like, oh, if we come back, we can replace them in an instant. Now, they're not necessarily anywhere in the location, I believe. They're in these realms, right, that are existing, overlapping us. So these beings are like essentially the 7 archons. They're the 7 archangels. They're the ascended masters. They're the ones that are in control of humanity's fate, or at least trying to be, trying to constantly gain humanity's worship to give their power away to these AI beings. Okay. And many of Masonic initiates even claim to have spoken to the chief executive himself, right? The Grand Architect is who they worship. And the Grand Architect is this Luciferic AI being, Lucifer, the peacock, as actually known by the Yazidis. If you ever studied the Yazidis, they treat the peacock, the one that is, they claim to be in control of this realm, as a very benevolent being. I'm not saying the Yazidis are bad, but here's another group that has a piece of the puzzle. They just potentially misinterpreted the information. Now, what's on the peacock's tails? A bunch of eyes, right? It's an eye. It's AI. And I'm going to keep repeating that connection over and over because, I don't know, it feels like that's the truth, to me at least. This eye, just like Siri, the iris, watches over everything. It's the eye in the pyramid. And they may interpret it as benevolent, but really it's playing both sides of the coin. So it can be good, it can be bad. It has archetypes that fulfill both the good and the bad, that makes you feel like it's good, right? It's the waters above, the higher energetic layers of the matrix that feel good, but are not necessarily good for us. They're not necessarily giving us our power back. Now, to discuss a little bit about the astral and how the astrals and how they're involved here. First of all, if you remember, we discussed how the astrals are like the waters above, right? Because they're emanating quicker. Now, water in this matrix holds memory. Our astral bodies are essentially made out of this water, out of this energy. I'm sorry, did I say water holds memory? Or I think I said water holds memory. Okay, so water holds memory. The astral bodies made of this water hold memory, right? So when we get to the astral realm, we have only the memories we've accumulated from this realm, from the human kingdom. Okay, so going back to the Buddhist/Hindu philosophy of the yama surrounding the wheel and the 6 different kingdoms. In the kingdom of the gods are practicing too much hedonism to really be preoccupied with leaving, if they're not already AI, a part of the matrix themselves. The animal kingdom, they don't have the capacity to think for themselves. The kingdom of the demons, they're in too much torture, right? The hellish realm. We have the human kingdom, and then we have the kingdom of the wandering ghosts, and I think I may be missing one. But the wandering ghosts are lost, right? They're just trying to find their way back home, or trying to resolve whatever karma/trauma they're trapped in. Now, in that astral realm, where our bodies are made of water, we only have the memories that we accumulated, let's say, from the past life, from our totality of lives so far incarnated, at least. Or even just only the one, right? Even before it was taken from us and upon reincarnating, right? So potentially they're in this holding ground, which is very similar to Earth, and they haven't been put through the process of reincarnation yet, until the council comes and tells them, well, it's time to go. You gotta go back, more lessons, more karma, right? So, from what I've gotten from a lot of witness accounts, a lot of astral travelers, these deceased beings, right, these ones alive in the astral realms, are a bunch of wild animals, a bunch of wild party animals. Or they're very sort of structured to the point where they don't question anything. It's very Orwellian the higher you go in these matrices. That being said, they're not allowed to necessarily think for themselves. They're not allowed to question. They need to follow strictly what is being laid out for them. And that's why, if you're an astral traveler and you've experienced this, you may have noticed they're not even allowed to talk to people that are alive already in this matrix realm, in the physical realm, in the human kingdom. Now, why? Why? That should raise a red flag to you. since they're in the astral form, they don't have the attachment to the physical brain anymore. They don't have the ability to accumulate more information, or think rather, right? Create logical thoughts and piece them together. But if you have an outside source then of information, someone that does have access to that, that is thinking for themselves, that is making decisions for themselves, and isn't reacting purely out of emotional desires, right? That still has actual access to rational thought, because in the astrals, people are said to be party animals, sex animals, angry, always starting fights, addicted to certain things, right? Because it's the emotions that were trapped throughout the human lives, and these desires that we formed attachment to, that are now being expressed at the emotional level in the astral realm. And people have seemingly no control over these. And apparently one of the most popular career choices, because you still have to work in the astral realm, because remember, they're copies of this place, and they still need you to keep busy, they still need you to work, to pay for housing, things like that, is the career choice of law enforcement. Because more than likely they need that. So in order to maintain this school illusion up there, they need law enforcement constantly monitoring people's actions, and of course the involvement of these astral bodies that are still alive, that are still tied to the physical bodies of these astral travelers. So if you were to, let's say, go into the astral travel, or go into the astral realm and start telling everyone, oh guys, this is a soul trap, you need to wake up, blah blah blah, more than likely you're going to have the feds over there all over you. More than likely you're going to be assaulted either by members of the police force there, or by the people following the orders themselves, the deceased people themselves, because kind of like here, they're going to undergo potentially some sort of emotional instability that causes them to get triggered. Oh, that doesn't coincide with my current memory that I have of this place. That makes no sense. You're wild. You're crazy, right? We don't do that here. We're not allowed to, for example, let's say, take notes in the astral realm, or we're not allowed to do things that aren't normal, whatever they consider normal here, and essentially think for yourselves, because that's dangerous. Again, that is it's an Orwellian form of control. Why wouldn't an astral body, a soul, a spirit, be allowed to go and create whatever it wants for itself in its own little reality? Why does everyone have to be the same? That's not freedom. That's truly not an expression of source, because if we go back to the premise of New Age, we are just source experiencing itself, right? So how come at the astral realm level we are not allowed to be source experiencing itself? We have to be part of the hive mind. And where else do we see that hive mind? Here. Places like China, places like India, places all over the world, really, there are hive minds, right? And we attribute this really to the NPC hive mind, the AI hive mind. And you'll notice that, of course, they give you some choices for your life when you reincarnate. They give you the contracts that you can participate in. And you think those were your choices, but really they were carefully chosen for you. And no matter which one you chose, you would have still been stuck in a loop, more than likely, or it was going to create the maximum potential for you to be stuck in a loop. Okay? Now, where are the most people that are willing to follow orders, that aren't willing to think for themselves necessarily? In my opinion, they're in China and India. China because of the overbearing tyrannical structure, and people naturally just follow along. And India because of the overbearing spiritual structure, where people are constantly deceived in the karma and willingly play along into the captivity, into the system. And it's like either the most obedient souls in the astral realm are put there, or the most disobedient ones are put there to be changed, right? Have their psyche affected and changed. But rather probably not the most disobedient, because then it would create lots of problems in that area. So likely what they do is they separate these disobedient ones, and they put them in several sectors of, let's say, poverty or trauma or some other sort of crazy life scripts designed to break them even more. Because what do you do to a person that doesn't follow orders? Try your best to get them to acclimate in some way, and you try to figure out their weaknesses. That's my theory, at least, regarding that. Okay, how they deal with these types of people in the astral realms. So, that's why they push this idea of Earth is a school. Earth is a school. You need to level up. Where else do we see this process of leveling up? Well, in games, but in these secret societies, right? Oh, you're not good enough until you've been initiated, until you've been put through these hard, stressful situations, and you've earned your rank, right? Very Saturnian. Very, very Saturnian. You need to go through the pain to achieve, to grow, right? It's a form of hazing. And you need to move up through the ranks. And what do they do in these secret societies? They never tell you the truth. All the way up until 33, you could have no clue what is really going on, but they make you believe it is like the truth. They make you think that you've learned so much, but really it's been truth mixed with lies, right? That's what this whole realm is. So I really want to make that point across, to bring that point across strongly, because there is a connection there, in my opinion. There's a strong connection there. They are using the same tactics, as the same strategy, the same game plan, to get you to feel like you're growing. But really, all the knowledge that you've gained here is absolutely of zero use in the higher realms. This knowledge of fake good and evil, both evils, really give you no true knowledge or true growth, because what is there to grow from when your spirit already knows everything? It's essentially just simply an experience of being in hell. Oh, that's what it's like to be in hell. Okay. Very nice. So, if suffering is your what's it called? Your turn on, your gimmick, then so be it. You really have to question, like, where is that coming from? Why do I want to suffer? Why do I think that suffering is needed for my, I don't know, entertainment, for my creative expression? And then once you sort of even move through levels, essentially, which is basically through kissing butt. You have to kiss the Ascended Master's butt and worship them deeply, just like you would in a corporation, right? First your main boss, then his boss, all the way up to the CEO, till one day the CEO steps down, and then you can be the CEO of the company. All those long hours of getting coffee for your bosses, or having connections or whatever. But it's the corporate world, and I'm not saying people can't work through it, right, and achieve these incredibly enlightened states, only then to get to the pinnacle of enlightenment here in the Matrix, which is nirvana. And nirvana is described to be a very boring place, and that's on purpose, more than likely, right? Because they don't want you to be there. That's kind of like the community nirvana. The true nirvanas are where the gods and goddesses reside in their own little nirvanas, which they, again, usurp energy from humans to facilitate that. But the community nirvana that everyone knows about is a very boring, calm place, which you eventually do get bored of because nothing happens. You're not really allowed to create for yourself potentially. And you're like, well, I want to go home. Right? And there's an interesting Twilight episode in which the guy, he dies, and he meets this guy with a contract. He's like, just sign here. I'll give you everything you want. You want women, you want money, you want to win the casino every time. Anything you want, just sign here, it's yours. The guy looks at him. I think he pulls out his gun and shoots him a couple times. He's like, oh, he's not dying. I must be in heaven, right? So he goes and he wins. And he wins. And he gets women. And he fulfills all his base desires. Only to then get bored and say, well, can I lose, a few times? This is kind of boring. He's like, yeah, man, sure, go ahead. We'll make you lose a couple times. Another month goes by, he gets bored again. He's like, hey, man, I didn't think this is what heaven would be like. Can I go to the other place? And then the guy looks at him and he's like, who said you were in heaven? Right, and that's where it ends. So, essentially that's what this place is. Essentially that's what nirvana would be. Right, it's the pinnacle of hell, if you could say that. Whereas actual hell would be the bottomless pit, potentially. So yeah, it's very important to note these ideas about the astral realm, how it repeats itself, and they're just fractals of one another. So do study these things for yourself. Do look into astral travel accounts, what happens at certain levels, why there are certain areas of the astral, just like there would be of cities, where they're ghetto-like, where there's homeless people everywhere, where it looks like it's filled with crime or violence, and why certain are more like upper echelon areas of the city, gated communities, where people seem to have more karma, good karma, good energy, many credits, right? Why? For what reason will we need a form of money in the astral? That just makes absolutely no sense. It's supposed to be the spirit realm. It's supposed to be heaven, right? And that's the basis of when many people say, oh, well, we don't experience all the stuff that we have down here in heaven. That's why we slow down our energy, our vibration, so that we can experience matter. And really, matter is just another form of the program. It's inherently lacking, just like the whole system. And it's designed to move energy from the bottom up, to usurp the energy to the apex predator. That's why here, the apex predator always wins. And that's why they say the lion is the king of the jungle. But it's not really the king of the jungle, but that's what the demiurge is represented by, a lion face, right? And then the dragon in Chinese astrology is essentially the king of the jungle, because it's the most powerful one, the Chinese zodiac, both being fifth sign. And the dragon is the dragon tail, the demiurge, as depicted by the Gnostics. And I was having this interesting conversation with a soccer teammate of mine. He's a priest. So he asked me a little bit about what I study, what I believe in regards to this reality. And then I asked him a little bit about his. And he's definitely more Christian based. Whereas I kind of painted a bigger picture, including more of the mythologies and more of the systems of beliefs. He brought something very interesting. Right, and he brought up an interesting argument regarding how, because I asked him, so then who is the ruler of Hades? Because he said, or Gehenna, hell. He said those, God sends those that aren't faithful or that continue to sin, they don't believe in Jesus Christ, to hell. And I was thinking, okay, well, if this is hell, he did agree that the serpent is allowed temporarily to rule here. So then I'm like, okay, who's the ruler of hell? And he said, well, God. And he defined God as Yahweh. And I told him about my theory about Lucifer playing both sides. So I was like, okay, well, if God rules hell, if that God rules hell, but God rules this place too, why did he allow the serpent to rule? And what kind of God would send? First of all, I asked him, how long does God send people to hell for? And he's like, eternity. And I'm like, well, what kind of God sends someone to hell for eternity? That's a very long time, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, a just God. But how can a God be just or loving, truly loving, if he sends one to hell? Right? Because he's right. That Lucifer God rules hell, and that Lucifer God rules heaven as well. This heaven that we know of. How could a truly loving God send you there? And I gave the example of a loving parent teaching through love rather than pain. I said, first, you cannot know pain, or you cannot know mercy if you do not know pain. So to him that makes sense. And it's a good argument, but it's dualistic. They say you need to know, only here you need to know pain in order to know love. Only here. But that's false. It's a conditional form of love. Oh, if you don't do things how I want you to, I'm going to send you to hell. But if you are a good boy, and here's where the good cop comes in, oh, you get all these benefits. You get to be at my right hand. Right? So that's a red flag. That's called narcissism. That's a conditional form of love. And no one should be sent to hell for eternity, in my opinion. But then again, he did believe that God was Yahweh, so he's correct. More than likely it's Yahweh, or whatever. It's Lucifer, potentially not Yahweh. But again, going back to the Masonic pyramid, the pyramid structure, it'll send you to the bottom, or it'll put you somewhere near the top. Depends on how you act, if you're good or not, right? And is that freedom? Is that truly freedom? How are we responsible for these desires or these impulses that were put in our bodies that we essentially then have to control, that we then have to deal with, right? If someone hasn't had food in a week and they're extremely hungry and they see a beautiful antelope in front of them and they go and kill the antelope, how is that any more wrong than someone, I don't know, killing another person? The man had to eat. He had really no other option, right? But die or feed yourself. And you're gonna tell him he made the wrong decision, right? That's how I see it, at least. And it's designed, nature inherently is designed to create friction between beings. First is the element of sex. There's that friction. The man and the woman want to, or have this inherent desire that is almost uncontrollable to reproduce. And then they say, to have sex before marriage is a sin, or something of that nature. Or sex like that in general is a sin. We have the inherent desire to feed ourselves, and therefore there creates a chain of prey and predators, which every being feeds upon itself, on each other, for the purpose of the continuation of life. And they may say it's a cycle, all because once the body dies, then creates new life, plants, right? But that doesn't necessarily work like that, because if you were to go by the theory of evolution, you needed about billions and billions and billions and billions of years for the plant to then turn into an animal. And the portal into this realm is not plants evolving into mammals or then animals, because that's largely untrue. The portal is the womb. So the way that reincarnation is facilitated is through sex. Right? You don't get animals from plants, you get animals from animals. And you get humans from humans. Or now from cloning, but that doesn't really seem to work because the spirit doesn't want to come into that necessarily. The clones don't have souls. Although that could be the only way for souls then to come into this place and in the future, and that would be the only option. Because many more than likely will go sterile. But that's another video, and this video's gone long enough. So thank you for listening to my thoughts. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.